listening to Points Everywhere, the podcast where busy people learn to take amazing trips for minimal out-of-pocket cost without having to devote a ton of time to the process. I'm your host, Courtney. I'm a mom, traveler, and primary care physician. I'll share the secret strategies my family uses to earn points and miles so that you and your family can travel everywhere for almost free, just like us. Hello and welcome to Points Everywhere. This is your host, Courtney. Thank you so much for joining me, and a big thank you to all of my new listeners. I've had some growth since the last episode, which I'm so excited about. I want to let you know that I'm so happy you're here, and if you are brand new to Points and Miles, you might want to consider going back to the beginning. In the first few episodes, I talk about some of the fundamentals of Points and Miles, and it's a great place to start before you delve into some of these later episodes. Thank you again for joining me. If you are getting value from this podcast, I would love it so much if you could leave a rating and a review wherever you listen. This really helps the podcast grow. Let's get to our topic for today, which is unlocking airport lounge access for a family. This is one of my favorite topics in Points and Miles because airport lounges have significantly enhanced the experience on travel days for myself and my family. Everything I'm going to talk about could absolutely apply to solo or couple travelers, but I'm focusing on strategies for getting lounge access for a family because it's more complicated. The more people you're trying to get into the lounge, the trickier it can be, especially if those people are freeloaders who don't have their own credit cards. Yes, I'm talking about our children. Airport lounge access isn't specifically a Points and Miles topic, but it's very Points and Miles adjacent because you can get airport lounge access from holding many different Points and Miles credit cards. So while accessing an airport lounge doesn't necessarily mean you're earning or redeeming points, it can be one of the perks of participating in Points and Miles. Having lounge access has been an absolute game changer for myself and my family. It really just makes travel days so much smoother, and it saves money at the airport. One of the things I really didn't understand about airport lounges before I had access myself is that everything's free once you get in, with very few exceptions. So even if we're talking about really more basic lounges, it is still so advantageous to be able to go in and grab even just a few basic snacks and drinks. I know I've paid $7 for a bottle of water at an airport, and it's so nice to not have to do that. Today I'll be talking about the different types of airport lounges, how to get access to them without having to pay a ton of money, and strategies for how to get an entire family into the airport lounge. At the end, I will give some awards for my favorite credit cards for lounge access, especially for a family. There are two ways to get lounge access when you boil it down. One is by the ticket you booked for that particular trip. So if you're flying first class or business class, especially for an international flight, you can have access to an airport lounge. That's the first way, and the way I'm least commonly utilizing. The other way is through holding a specific credit card. You can also pay separately for memberships to these various lounges, but I'm going to sort of ignore that option because if you're listening to this podcast, you're into Points and Miles, and I'm sure you would rather open a credit card and earn a sign-on bonus, which then includes lounge access, versus just paying for lounge access outright. I will present several options for different credit cards that you can use to earn lounge access. At the end of the day, the one that is best for you will really depend a lot on your home airport, which airports you frequent, and who you travel with. It's really hard to give one-size-fits-all answers here, but I will try to focus on some strategies that will work for certain groups of people and certain lounges that might be better for certain groups of people. But at the end of the day, if you have access to a certain lounge and you don't have that lounge in your airport or an airport you go to frequently, you're not going to be able to utilize that benefit. So one of the things you really want to look at before you make a decision about which of these cards to get is to look at your home airport, the airports you frequently travel either to or through. Remember, you can access lounges on layovers if they're long enough. And that will help you make the decision for which credit card is going to be the best for your situation for airport lounge access. My home airport has 0 lounges altogether, so I really focused on the airports that I travel to and through when making this decision. I also focus my strategy a lot on having the ability to get more than one person into the lounge for free with credit cards. Let's talk a little bit about the specific types of lounges. There's sort of 3 main categories of lounges. The first are airport-specific lounges. These are lounges that, say, Delta, American Airlines might have. You can access these lounges both by flying a certain class ticket, so first or business class, or by holding an airline-specific credit card. There are also ways to get these with other credit cards, but the main way is having a co-branded card for that specific airline. That's one type of lounge, the airline-specific lounges. Next are the credit card lounges. So these are lounges that are created by the credit card companies. So a Capital One lounge, an Amex Centurion lounge, for example. And these are located mostly domestically, but have a few international locations. So these are mostly domestic lounges. These in general tend to be pretty nice. So these are what I would consider the higher tier lounges in terms of quality in general. The next bucket of lounges I'll talk about are ones that fall under Priority Pass. Priority Pass is a lounge access program that includes all different brands of lounges, both domestically and internationally. This is a big network of lounges, and many of the different credit cards will give you access to Priority Pass lounges. There will be some differences to the lounge access benefits based on the credit card, and we'll delve into that. But just know Priority Pass is this big network of all different airport lounges. Priority Pass can include also things called Minute Suites, spas, Gameway, and restaurants. Let's pause and talk about those options a little bit. With many Priority Pass programs that you can get through your credit card, you have access not only to Priority Pass lounges, but you have access to these other experiences with your lounge membership. Minute Suites, for example, are kind of exactly what they sound like. So they're like these little bitty hotel room type pods that you can get access to for an hour or two using your Priority Pass. They usually have like a bare bones couch, a TV, and a tiny desk. They can be nice if you want to try to take a nap. Not a very comfortable nap, but a more comfortable nap than in the airport terminal, or if you just need a quiet place to do some work. Certain spas also can be accessed with Priority Pass, so you can get things like a quick pedicure, polish change, shoulder massage with your Priority Pass. There's also Gameway locations at certain airports, which are spaces where you can play video games, and you can also get free drinks and snacks at these locations. So you can utilize these to get free airport food with your Priority Pass if there's a wait at the lounge or if the lounge isn't close to the gate that you need to be. There also now are a very limited number of credit cards that give you access to restaurants for Priority Pass benefit. This is where there's a list of certain restaurants at the airport that you get a cash credit to using your Priority Pass card. This used to be more widely available with Priority Pass, but now is pretty limited to just a couple of credit cards. So most of the time, you're not going to have this restaurant access, but you'll have access to food within the general lounges. So those are our 3 types of lounges: airline-specific lounges, credit card lounges, and Priority Pass lounges. I mentioned that the airline and credit card lounges tend to be higher tier in general. That means overall the space is more elevated, there tend to be better food options, they're just overall nicer in general than the Priority Pass lounges. Another generalization to keep in mind is that Priority Pass lounges tend to be lower tier here in the US and nicer abroad. This is obviously a generalization, and there's a ton of variability between even domestic Priority Pass lounges in terms of quality. Sometimes they'll have a really nice selection of food, drinks, very nice space, and other times you feel like you're in a very sad conference room with, maybe some pretzels and sodas and waters. But honestly, I'll take a quiet place to sit and some pretzel and water over nothing at all. But just know, if you're thinking about Priority Pass lounges, the quality of lounge that you have access to is going to vary widely and may not be awesome within the US. With that said, there are tons of very nice Priority Pass lounges within the US. Overall, having lounge access is awesome for the ability to be in an area outside of the terminal, have a quiet place to sit, clean bathrooms, free beverages, including alcohol, and at least access to snacks and sometimes access to an entire meal, depending on what's being served. Some of these lounges will even let you order food off of a menu versus just taking options off of the buffet. So the food can be really good. But again, super variable, so be careful not to get your hopes up. There are 2 apps that I find helpful when looking at airport lounges. One is the Priority Pass app, and then another is called Lounge Review. The Priority Pass app will show you which lounges and experiences you have access to with your Priority Pass membership at each airport, which is really nice. It'll also tell you how to find each lounge and then what sorts of things are offered at each of those lounges. Lounge Review is essentially the same thing, but it's not limited to a Priority Pass. You can enter which airport you're going through, your flight information, and if you have status with a specific airline, which credit cards you have, if you have memberships like Priority Pass, and then it will show you for a given airport which lounges you have access to, and then it will give some information about each lounge, including what services are there, what to expect, how crowded it's expected to be. This app can be really helpful when navigating airport lounges. Let's talk about specific credit cards that you can use to get access to these lounges. These aren't in any particular order, but I am starting with cards that are not specific to an airline. So cards that you can use to get access to Priority Pass and other lounge networks. I'll start with the Bilt Palladium. This card has a $495 annual fee and gives you Priority Pass with 2 guests free. You can then bring in 3rd and 4th guests for paying $35 of Bilt cash per guest. This is an important distinction in my mind from the other lounge programs where you can pay cash to add guests on. In this case, you're using Bilt Cash, which is like fun money that you earn when you spend money on your Bilt card. It is not equivalent to regular cash. You can redeem it for all sorts of different things, but in general, I wouldn't value $35 at Bilt Cash the same as $35 of regular cash. And if you're spending money on your Bilt card, you probably have extra Bilt cash lying around. So with minimal loss to you, you can get up to 4 guests into Priority Pass lounges with the Bilt Palladium card. You can also add an authorized user to this card for $95 a year, and the authorized user gets their own pass plus 2 free guests. This card is a great one if you're trying to get several people, a larger family, into an airport lounge. This is a great option. Bilt does not have its own lounges, so you're really just looking at these Priority Pass lounges with this one. Next up is the Amex Platinum, both the personal and the business cards. These are $895 annual fee cards, so definitely higher annual fee. With this, you get access to Priority Pass Select with 2 guests. You also get access to Amex Centurion lounges, as well as Delta Sky Club. This program gives you 2 guests free for Priority Pass lounges, and then is $35 for each guest after the first 2. For the Centurion Amex lounges, the fancy ones, it's $50 per guest, no free guests, and then $30 for children ages 2 to 17. So for this one, you get access to some much nicer lounges with the Centurion lounges, but it's not close to free to bring any guests in. This is also a much higher annual fee card. I'm not going to list all of the locations for these Centurion lounges, but to give you some ideas, they've got several lounges through the US and a couple of international locations. US ones include Charlotte, Denver, Vegas, LA, Miami, New York, both JFK and LaGuardia, Salt Lake City, San Francisco, DCA and IAD in Washington, D.C. There are others as well. These lounges tend to be really high quality, great food and drinks, very nice spaces. but you're also paying for it. Next up is the Chase Sapphire Reserve, both the personal and business cards. Both of these are also higher annual fee cards at $795 a year. With these, it's similar to the Amex Platinum. You're getting Priority Pass Select lounges. You're also getting some access to 20 Air Canada lounges when you're traveling on a Star Alliance flight. You're also getting into the Chase Sapphire Lounge, which is their own brand of lounge and tend to be really nice with good food and good experience. On par, I would say, with the Centurion lounges. With this, you get 2 free guests, both at the Chase Sapphire Lounge and the Priority Pass lounges. So compared to the Amex Platinum, where you're only getting free guests for the Priority Pass lounges, with this card, you do get 2 free guests at the nicer Chase Sapphire Reserve lounges. After that, for both types of lounges, it's $27 for each guest. Children 2 and under are free. You get 1 free guest at the Air Canada lounges. You can add an authorized user to this card for $195, and the authorized user gets the same benefit, so their own lounge access and then 2 free guests. The Chase Sapphire Lounge network is significantly smaller than the Centurion Lounge network and includes lounges at Boston, New York, JFK and LaGuardia, Philly, DC at IAD, Austin, Dallas, Las Vegas, and Hong Kong. That's it. So these are high quality lounges, but in far fewer locations than the Centurion lounges. Next up is the Venture X and Venture X Business. These both have a $395 annual fee, so significantly less than the Amex Platinum and the Chase Sapphire Reserve. Similarly to those other programs, you're getting access to Priority Pass Select lounges, and then you're also getting access to Capital One lounges. The guest access for this program is not awesome. You get no free guests, even for Priority Pass lounges. For the Capital One lounges, it's $45 for adult guests and $25 for children, 17 and under, and children under 2 are free. For the Priority Pass lounges, it costs $35 per guest regardless of age. Venture X Business cardholders receive 2 free guests at Priority Pass lounges. So the business, you do get 2 free guests with priority, but with the Capital One Venture X Personal, you're not getting any free guests, even at the Priority Pass lounges. So essentially, the guest policy for Priority Pass is the worst with the Capital One Venture X Personal card out of all the cards we've talked about so far. Capital One lounges are very high quality and also have these really cool grab and go stations where if your time is short, you can just run in, grab some quick snacks and drinks and head off, which is really nice. This is a relatively small lounge network and includes Dallas-Fort Worth, Denver, Washington Dulles IAD, Las Vegas, JFK, Charlotte, and then Capital One Landings, which are smaller lounges that are more like a restaurant, essentially, where you sit down and order food off of a menu. And those are at LaGuardia and DCA. That's it for the bank credit cards that include their own lounges. So those are the Chase, Amex, and Capital One cards. We also talked about the Bill Palladium. Next up, in terms of cards that you can use to get lounge access, is the Citi Strata Elite. With this one, you pay a $595 annual fee and you get 4 Admirals Club passes. So that's access to American Airlines Admirals Club. And that only works when you're flying American. So you can't use these just any old time. 4 club passes doesn't sound like a lot, but kids are free. So if you had yourself, an adult, and 3 kids, you would need to use just 2 passes to cover those 5 people. This is a higher annual fee card and with relatively limited lounge access since you're not getting Priority Pass. So really, this card, in my opinion, isn't a great option for your only card for lounge access, but could be a very nice addition if you want the card for other reasons and want to have access to the Admirals Club. Next up is a bit of a deep dive. This is the Ritz-Carlton card. This card is actually a little bit tricky to obtain, but I mention it because the benefits are awesome. This card has a $450 annual fee, so high but lower than some of the more premium cards. you can't just apply for this card, but you can still get it if you product change from an existing Personal Chase Marriott Bonvoy card. So if you get another Marriott card, like the Boundless, the Bold, or the Bountiful, gotta love all these B names. If you have one of those for at least 12 months with a credit limit of $10,000 or more, you can then product change to the Ritz-Carlton card. Now, why on earth would you want to do that? Well, mainly for these lounge benefits. You pay $450 a year, you get Priority Pass with 2 free guests, you get access to Sapphire Lounges with 2 free guests, and you get to add unlimited free authorized users. The free authorized users also get their own lounge access with 2 free guests. So even though this card is a little bit obscure and hard to get, it's a really solid strategy if you're trying to get many people into a lounge, especially adults. You can add these people as authorized users on the card. You don't even have to give them the credit card to use per se, but you just add them as authorized users. They then get their own lounge access with guests. So this is an awesome option for getting many people into a lounge. Another card worth mentioning here that I don't think I've mentioned at all on previous episodes is the USA Bank Altitude Connect. This card is a really awesome way to get some lounge access for free. This is a $0 annual fee card, and it gives you 4 Priority Pass visits per year. The Priority Pass includes access to restaurants. Remember I mentioned that rarely some Priority Pass programs will offer restaurant benefits where you get, I think it's $28 per Priority Pass in value at the restaurant. So you could go to a specific restaurant and then essentially just get $28 per person with Priority Pass access taken off the bill. So nice. So to have that benefit for $0 a year for visits is awesome in my opinion. So this card is definitely worth considering. Bank of America card that is worth talking about is the Bank of America Premium Rewards Elite card. This is a $550 annual fee card, so not cheap, but this is another one where you get Priority Pass that includes the restaurant benefit. This gives you 4 Priority Pass memberships with guests for no extra authorized user fee. So for that $550, you're getting 4 full Priority Pass memberships with guest access for each of those people. So again, great way to get multiple people into the lounge, and that includes that restaurant benefit. I'm now going to shift to talk a bit about airline-specific cards. The first I'll mention is the JetBlue Premier card. The reason I bring this one up first is that it's sort of a hybrid situation and that it's an airline-specific card, but this one actually also gives you Priority Pass. It's not giving you specifically JetBlue lounge access, it's giving you Priority Pass lounge access. And the reason this matters is that this is another one that also includes that restaurant benefit. And the really cool thing about this card is that with that Priority Pass membership, including the restaurant benefit, you get unlimited guests. So that means you could be traveling with a huge group of people. You could go to a restaurant. You all get $28 off of your tab each. So this card, even though it's airline specific, could be very lucrative for Priority Pass access. I'm not going to talk a ton about all of the different airline-specific cards that can give you lounge access because there's just so many, and whether or not you want to utilize one of these really just depends on how much you frequent these airlines. Whereas the credit card-specific lounges and the Priority Pass lounges, you can access anytime if you're in that airport. The airline-specific lounges, in general, you've got to be flying that airline or one of the partners of that airline to utilize that access. So whether or not it makes sense for you to get lounge access through an airline co-branded card really depends on how often you're going to be flying that airline or one of its partners. I'll mention a couple of these though. One is the American Airlines Advantage Executive World Elite MasterCard. This one's got a $595 annual fee, and it gives you access for immediate family, so that includes spouse, domestic partner, or children under 18, or 2 free guests. Another is the Delta SkyMiles Reserve American Express card. This gives you access to Delta Sky Club if you're flying Delta but not basic economy. And these card members get 15 visits per year to the Delta Sky Club. With 2 guests at $50 a person, children under 2 are free. This one also gives you Centurion Lounge access because it's an Amex card. So it's another way to get Centurion Lounge access without holding the Amex Platinum. The Centurion Lounge access is the same as with the Amex Platinum, where you have to pay $50 per adult guest and $30 for children 2 to 17. The annual fee for this Delta card is $650 a year. All right, so that was a lot of information. Ultimately, which card you choose for lounge access is going to depend, again, a ton on which airports you frequent and then who you're traveling with. It's hard to pick favorites because it's so dependent on your situation. But I'll throw out there, you don't have to pick just one. I currently, at the time of recording, hold the Chase Sapphire Reserve, the Amex Platinum, and the Venture X. So I have access to all of those different lounges. So I've got more than one Priority Pass membership. That's duplicate, but that's not the only reason I hold all 3 of these cards. I'm getting a lot of value in other ways from each of these cards, and so I choose to keep them for the value I'm getting for them. So I have access to Priority Pass with 2 guests with my Chase Sapphire Reserve. So the most generous guest policy is through the Chase Sapphire Reserve out of the cards that I have. So I can get my 2 children in with that. For the credit card specific lounges, I would have to be paying to have guests come in, which I haven't done, but totally would do, quite honestly. If we had a longer layover, I think it would be absolutely worth it to pay to bring kids into a lounge, depending on your situation, how long the layover is. But it's easy to spend $30, $35 on airport food and drink. I wish it wasn't, but it totally is. So to have access to the unlimited free food and then also the benefit of just having a nicer space to be in while you're waiting for your flight, I totally would pay for lounge access for my kids and my husband if needed. I also may pick a Priority Pass lounge at the same airport if it was decent. It just kind of depends on the airport and what's available. My husband holds the Bilt Palladium, so he has his own Priority Pass membership through that, and then he can get in 2 free guests. So if we're traveling with grandparents or other family, we can get a total of 4 guests in free on our Priority Pass. And then he can get a 3rd and 4th if needed with the Bilt Palladium by using Bilt Cash. So that's our current strategy, which absolutely may change. And again, I don't hold all of those premium cards just for the lounge access, but that is a really nice benefit. It is hard to generalize with this, but let's give some awards for the best cards for specific situations. First, I'll give the award for the infrequent traveler. For this, I would pick the US Bank Altitude Connect. This is the one that's $0 annual fee and you get 4 free passes. Cannot beat free. So if you don't travel super frequently by air, this is absolutely your best option for lounge access, hands down. No annual fee. Now the award for the best for the bougie solo traveler. In this case, I would award the Amex Platinum. Access to the biggest network of bougie lounges all around the US and some international as well as that Priority Pass membership lounge access. It doesn't have generous guest policies, but who cares? You're flying solo. You also could opt to bring someone in for a fee. Next up, we'll talk about best for a bougie family. So a family that wants to travel in style and frequent airport lounges. In this case, I'd pick the Chase Sapphire Reserve. This hits the balance in terms of having a decent policy for guests and including not just Priority Pass, but a nicer lounge network of those Chase Sapphire lounges, but again, with a decent policy for guests. Bougie families, Chase Sapphire Reserve. Best for a family overall. So if you're a family, you want airport lounge access, but you're not necessarily what you would say bougie, airport lounges with some free food are fine. There's 2 that I would recommend that I would say are tied. That would be the Ritz-Carlton card and the Bilt Palladium card. Both of these are similar in annual fee, not the super premium annual fee like the Chase Sapphire Reserve or the Amex Platinum, but give you some free guest access to those Priority Pass lounges. I listed both of these because the Built Palladium you can just outright apply for and is a great option in this case. The Ritz-Carlton is the most awesome if you're trying to get a big family in, because again, this was that card where you get unlimited free authorized users, and then you also get 2 free guests. I didn't list this one first because you have to wait a whole year to product change to get this card. So I wanted to list 2 options here. So I would say the Ritz-Carlton card and the Built Palladium card are tied here. Best overall card for lounge access, I would award this to the Built Palladium. Now, feel free to argue with my decision, but I think the Built Palladium hits that balance of not being a super high premium annual fee card, giving good lounge access, free guests, the option to add more guests. I think it just hits that happy medium of you get into some lounges, you get a good amount of guests, but you're not paying a ton. So I would say this wins the best overall award. I think the Ritz-Carlton could totally be the best overall as well. But again, because you can't just outright apply for it, I'm not going to give it first place. It's too hard to get to be in first place for this. Agree with me? Disagree with me? Let me know. Send me a DM on Instagram. I would love to chat about what you think about airport lounge access and what the best ways are to get this. What airport lounges are you obsessed with? I would love to hear about it. Join me on my Instagram at Points Everywhere, and I would love to chat about your favorite lounges and your favorite ways to get access to them. Overall, airport lounges are an amazing way to really add to the travel experience and save a lot on food costs on travel days. If you haven't considered getting a credit card for lounge access, I encourage you to think about it. Once you experience these lounges, it's really hard to go back. Thanks for joining me today on Points Everywhere, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me on Points Everywhere. For more Points and Miles secrets, follow me on Instagram at Points Everywhere. For referral links to my favorite cards, check out pointseverywhere.com. If you're enjoying this podcast, I would love it if you could take a minute to leave me some stars and a review.